Today I'm going to be reading 1-star reviews of my favorite books. I was very lazy with this approach. I just went to my story graph and went to my 5-star reviews and chose 10 books. These aren't all of my favorite books. I just chose the 10. And starting off with Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison. Tristarella says that I really, brackets, really in capital letters, exclamation point, hated this novel. Way too vulgar and cross, strange character names, incest, just peachy, not, exclamation point. And I get why people are really uncomfortable with taboo themes in literature, but a book having incest doesn't make it bad at all. A book having strange character names does not make it bad. I hate to say it. Is it vulgar? At times it is, but this to me was such a transformative novel. It requires a lot of your time and your patience, and Toni Morrison does expect you to rise to a level, but once it clicks, and highly recommend this. I wouldn't say like start with Song of Solomon. I don't know. If you ever want to try Toni Morrison, I think start with The Bluest Eye, because that is, okay, of the books I've read by hers, that is the most accessible novel. Shosho says nope. Exclamation point. I respect a review like this, to be honest. I respect it a lot, in fact. Tori says that the vernacular drives me crazy. The characters are shoved in and too crazy to be real. The moral is askew and unbelievable. Milkman is a self-obsessed, selfish, shallow, and stereotypical player or homeboy. His father is an asshole and his mother is freakishly sex-dependent. Somebody get me some drugs, because I think I'm hallucinating how truly awful this book was. They aren't wrong about the assessment of these characters, but Milkman being selfish is the whole point. And then number 2 is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. I love this novel. It's very difficult, but it's worth it. Al says this book is one long Reddit anti-work post, and this is the funniest thing I've ever read of how true it is. Like, Nelly's work situation, is truly awful. Like, this is so funny. And then Amber says, I agree with Edward Cullen on one thing. I have no idea how anyone likes this book. I just remember that this was really heavily discussed in Twilight, and yeah, come through intertextuality. Ben says, I stopped at page 42. I couldn't stand the writing. Not only was it difficult to decipher, call me dumb if you must, but sentences, even paragraphs that could have been summed up with a few words, were expounded upon pompously for pages. This is a shame, because I love dark love stories, and that, along with what I had heard about this novel's strong character development and its generally strong reputation, made me think I'd love it. But I can't take any more of the prose, and I'm too bored with ADD and too distracted with lack of patience to continue. Just can't do it. Me yuck. The me yuck is so uncalled for. What the hell? I don't know how I feel about the strong character development, because I think typically when people use strong character development, they mean to say that the character becomes a better person. But I think a character regressing and being horrible and taking on a dark nature is also character development. Like, so, but I'm very defensive. Maybe calm down, because some of these are really funny. Number 3, I have The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Walking Tragedies review says, to be honest, if I wanted the thoughts of a bunch of classist elitists who know dead classic languages, I just have dinner with my family. Sophie says DNF at 38%. Definitely not for me. It has a beautiful aesthetic, but it's beyond boring. It does have a beautiful aesthetic, This review reminds me of a friend who read the book. I hyped it a lot. I still do. I'm currently listening to it. And it got them into like a reading slump. Tessa says the real tragedy here is that I am now dumber for having read this book. Henry Winter, good sir, I could never hate you. No further comments. I respect this because Henry. Faoud says apparently Bunny's body isn't the only thing that falls off a cliff at the halfway point. A lot of people hate the second part of this novel, and I think the second book is comedic excellence, to be honest. It is so funny and so sad. The what happens during Bunny's funeral reveals so much about the characters, but it's also just like the situation that they find themselves in is incredibly funny as well. Like they are literally falling apart. Number 4 is White Teeth by Zadie Smith. This book, yeah, people have a lot of thoughts. Hannah says 1 star, no. I absolutely hate giving books 1 stars, and I hate to say this, but if I could, I would slash give, which crossed out, denote this book as a 0 stars. If someone was to ask me what the plot is, I couldn't answer it. The book rambles as it follows families through the decades. The end left me asking, what was the point? Zadie Smith is a good writer, I'll concede that, but this book just rambles on and on. It just wasn't good. It should have been edited better. I found myself drifting while reading, and I didn't care enough to go back and reread what I had technically read but not absorbed. In fact, that was most of the book. I don't think there's much more to say other than skip this one. Don't skip this one, guys. Mo says, I made it to page 14 before giving up on it. I could already tell by the language and the tone of this book that I had zero interest in reading any more of it. Yeah. I mean, it is a really hard book to read, but it's worth it. Maya says, bleh. I respect 1 star reviews with just one word. Something about it's so funny. Number 5, I have Simon versus the Homo sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. I didn't expect this book to be this highly reviewed, to be honest. It has an average of 4.17 stars. But Mary says that you can just tell this was written by a straight woman who has no idea what she's doing. Becky Albertalli is not straight. I think people always forget that people can discover their sexuality or change their sexual orientation, I mean. It reads like a stereotype, and the only thing I could think was gay kids don't think like this. Let me hold myself. Every time I turn the page, hell, kids don't talk like this. It reads like Albertalli just threw in random slang to impress teens. It feels a bit fetishistic too. Albertalli sounds like the kind of straight woman who wants a gay best friend but thinks lesbians are demons. Yes, Anamir. She even writes that gay girls have it easier because men think they're hot. She defends the weird obsession straight women have with gay men too, which is creepy. Albertalli is a pseudo-liberal straight woman who thinks she understands gay kids because she talked to a gay guy once for 5 seconds when she was in college. I'd rather be eviscerated by a straight woman than read this again. And then it's shelved as read, racist, homophobic, or just plain. Yeah. Aisana Umeri. They are these sentiments that people have about queer people being a certain way. Guys, it's just a sexual orientation. I am still deeply saddened by the way that a lot of people treated the author by making these assumptions that a person, people knew Albertalli to be straight then, and then she came out as bisexual, I think 2 years, not a couple of years ago, but a while ago. And yeah, we should stop doing that in general. Saeed says, okay, yes, it was very cute. The plot wasn't exactly my thing, but the characters all felt like real people, flawed, realistic, storied people. The email flirtations hit very close to home. Some writers cannot for the life of them write teenagers that feel like teenagers, but Albert Tully is not one of them. One part that got me to scream laugh was when Simon is describing his first beer and how disgusting it is accurate. And then he says, anyway, it really makes you worry about all the hype surrounding sex. I was dying. Zade, I think you meant to give this book 5 stars. And then number 6 is A Storm of Swords by George R.R. Martin. Matthew says, enough is enough. Although I enjoyed the first 2 books, it was partly in anticipation of something positive happening somewhere along the line. I got 2/3 of the way through this book, then hit one chapter that was just too depressing for me to continue. The author seems to enjoy building characters that we like and are rooting for, just to then put them through one difficulty after another, killing some of them off from time to time. This unrelenting negativity and unmitigated suffering just got to be too much for me. I checked out the plots of the remaining chapters and following books online, and it seemed that things get no better as the series goes on. Murder, betrayal, misunderstanding, treachery, torture, mutilation, deceit, tragedy, malignant evil in the series never seem to be balanced out by humor, forgiveness, faithfulness, and victory. Matthew, we are like... no. There are small moments of humor and consolation, and some characters who have been mostly bad guys begin to show some redeeming qualities. However, there is not enough uplifting content to make me want to suffer through the rest of the series, having beloved characters put through torment or killed. It's too bad because I really like some of the characters, the author style, and the world he creates. It's just too relentlessly negative. On the upside, I think this book had less explicit sexual content, at least as far as I got. Abigail says, confession, I didn't actually finish this book. I hurled it across the room instead. This is the first book I have not completed since middle school. I understand that the world raves about this series, but I just cannot understand. Not hurling it across the room like Silver Linings Playbook, son. Katie says, thank the Lord. To put it simply, this book would have been good if it wasn't so long. Like, actually, holy shit, I feel like I wasted half my life reading this. They are long, but they are worth it. Number 7 is Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. Miss Rooney is public enemy number 1. Like, people have a lot of opinions about her. And to be honest, some of them are just uncalled for. But Jen says, I'd rather have a conversation with the wall. That is very funny, so thanks, Jen, for giving me a laugh. Susanna says, this was a nightmare and Francis is the most annoying main character to ever exist. Akaxologisham Susanna because Francis we are nyani, but she's annoying, but she also feels really human. Like, yeah, I just finished this the other day and Francis, we are digger, but I will protect you. Rashka says, DNF at chapter 21, the fact that the author was able to make queer people boring should be a crime. Again, with these comments, like, personally, as a queer person, I find these kind of comments really, as a boring queer person, like, it's just a sexual orientation, guys. Number 8 is The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. Mia says, I feel icky. And then Margot says, when I think some trees have died to produce this horrible book, it makes me very sad that they gave up their lives in vain. Seriously, this crappy book won the Booker Prize in 1997, really? Well, I would have to assume that the judges were drunk or there just was no other entries that year. I know that the author must have been on crack when she wrote it. I did not like her disjointed writing style that uses overly descriptive words to describe nothing. I did not like any of the characters at all. So after reading about half of this nonsense, I just gave up any hope of it ever getting any better. I give it a very grudging 1 star, but really it is a no-star novel. The reason I decided to read it was because it was compared to The Kite Runner by Khalid Hosseini. Well, someone who's saying me a great big apology, as he is a very talented writer and Miss Roy does not even come close. I mean, it is a really hard book to read. I have to give it to Margot for that, but it's worth it. But I hate says don't read it. Read it. Number 9 is Days with Frog and Toad by Arnold Lobo. JZK13's review says, this is a horrible book. I don't know who gave this book a Newbery medal. This book is awful. This is a children's book. Caroline says, while standing around a bookshop waiting on not 2 but 3 attendants to find a book I was looking for, this book caught my eye as I had just commented on a fellow Goodreads review. So as I waited, I read. This is a waste of the paper it was printed on. The stories are drivel. In truth, they bring to mind Dick and Jane from years gone by, and the illustrations lack any vibrancy at all. One story had out of the 5 or 6 that are contained brought a mild smile forth. Or was that the store clerk finally bringing me the book I could not find on these shelves? One will never know. No wonder this book and 2 others from the series were on sale $3 for $10. Save your money, or better yet, find a real book, children's or otherwise, and grab a latte with that $10. You will have far more entertainment value for your money. Oh, the book I was looking for, Up Ghost River by Edmund Metatawabin. This is such a funny review for a children's book. And finally, number 10 is Milkman by Anna Burns. I really anticipate what people are going to say about this. Me to Gods of Literature. Why do you allow such utter bullshit to be awarded with Booker Prize? Gods of Literature to me. You will not be allowed to understand our ways, human, and you will suffer in darkness. Okay, Lubov. Okay. F says abandoned. If she had given her character names instead of trying to be quirky like that, I might have finished this. So frustrating when books do that. There's a reason that the character, narratively, it makes so much sense. It is about surveillance, after all, during the Troubles. It's always interesting to read something like this and then just obviously disagree, because if something is a favorite of mine, I not defensive, but this video was a little bit defensive, I have to say. Not really. I kind of like it when people hate stuff. Also love it when people love stuff. And yeah, I am thinking of rereading Milkman sometime because it was so rewarding. I find such value in reading difficult and dense books because it requires so much of your patience and time and your understanding and trying to get where the author is going. And yeah, I also just always think about the amount of time it took, especially for Milkman, because again, stream of consciousness, and it's executed brilliantly and is so much in that novel: surveillance, rape culture, women's liberation and suffering, and just about the Troubles, obviously, and but also just love Irish literature. Okay, the Irish literature I've read. Anyway, goodbye. Let me go have some dinner.